go. Dancing shoes at the ready. Oh, oh. There you go.
Good morning. Good morning, Timothy, and good morning to everybody watching us on LinkedIn, Clubhouse, Facebook, and YouTube, of course, listening to us in Clubhouse. It's a pleasure to be with you here this morning again. It's a little bit overcast here in Tokyo, but we're going to still talk about Japanese politics, and this is Japanese Politics 101 with the CEO of Langley Squire, the long-standing government relations and public affairs agency in Tokyo. So, Timothy, and thank you very much for being ready for this podcast again.
Thank you very much, Maya, and happy Easter to you and everyone else who is in the audience. Thank you very much for joining us on today, April 20th, our 219th episode, Maya.
Yes, indeed, 219th. I don't know how many weeks this week, but we're well beyond the fourth year of this podcast. So thanks to you.
219 weeks together.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm
weekends.
Yes, every Sunday. And like you, I've got other things that are occupying my time on my weekends. So I'm broadcasting again, almost as usual, from the deck of the good ship Grimm's. Golden Week starts next week, Maya. And so this year, it's a little bit broken up. We have potentially a 4-day weekend and then go back to work for a couple of days. And then the Golden Week, where several national holidays are lined up, begins again. So it's a little bit of a staggered Golden Week. I know you'll be taking off. I also will be taking off. I will be in the Pacific. So there might be some challenges for me getting appropriate Wi-Fi for us to do the briefing, but we will be here as we are every Sunday to talk about what's going on in Japanese politics that's important to everyone in the audience. And we once again appreciate you joining us. Please provide a comment or some sort of a question at the end of the broadcast. I apologize about this wind. I thought this microphone would take care of it. Maya, are you getting a little bit of feedback there?
Yes.
Are you getting the wind? Is the wind bothering you?
I am getting the wind, yes. I'm getting the wind. It seems to be pretty strong. Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me get right into it so that we can zoom through this and get to the Q&A where the heat and light is mostly produced. The yen closed out, Maya, at 142.15 to the dollar on Friday. This is a continuing strengthening of the yen. You might remember 2 weeks ago it was at 143, and 3 weeks ago it was at 145. So it's continuing to strengthen. It is causing a little bit of concern, and there's some reasons behind that I'd like to get into. Today is Easter Sunday. Hamas has kind of ramped up their insistence that let's put this war to an end and let's exchange the prisoners really quickly. I don't know if Israel is going to accommodate that, but there has been some movement there. There's been movement in Ukraine as well. Vladimir Putin has initiated a ceasefire for 30 hours starting on Easter Sunday. They also exchanged 500 prisoners on both sides. So there seems to be some movement in that regard as a consequence of it being.
Okay, so apologies for this. It seems that the wind on Timothy's side is pretty strong. So I think that he will be back here in seconds, actually. And yes, so Timothy is reporting once again from the other side of the Tokyo Bay. He's in Katsuyama, I think. That is where his boat is stationed. Yes, here we go.
Okay.
Yes. All right.
Okay. Sorry about that. Are we back on, Maya?
We are, yes.
Okay, I apologize. The wind kind of pushed the boat over a little bit. Easter Sunday, we talked about the truce and the prisoner exchange in Ukraine. Akazawa Ryoichi returned from his briefing with President Trump He went on Wednesday, and Thursday was back into the diet on Friday, explaining to the prime minister and others what happened and how it went. He met with President Trump before he met with who he was supposed to meet with. He met with President Trump for about 50 minutes, and then went into the next room and met with his counterparts, the Treasury Secretary, the Commerce Secretary, and USTR, and they met for 75 minutes. So it was a bit of a touch and go. It wasn't a full negotiation. It was a key off for, or a touch up for, a negotiation and promises of following up later. But it is somewhat surprising. They didn't know about it until they got off the airplane that they would actually be meeting with President Trump. So it was something of an issue, and I'd like to get into why and how that happened. Ambassador to Japan, George Glass, arrived on Friday, Maya. So now we're beginning to move into the Trump era with the appointment and the confirmation of George Glass. He and his wife arrived on Friday, and I think business will begin robustly from Monday. I want to talk just a tiny bit about that. Finance Minister Katsunobu Kato will be in D.C. this week. This week in Washington, D.C., there's the IMF and plus the G20. And as the finance secretary, he has a lot to say about the tariffs, about the yen exchange and that sort of thing. So although we have Mr. Akazawa, who is the trade negotiator, in finger quotes, there are a lot of people that are involved in this negotiation. It's not going to be very quick. It's going to take some time, and the repercussions are being studied right now in Nagatacho as well. There's a lot riding on that. Consumer prices surged over the last week and over the last month. 4,500 consumer goods went up in prices. This is the largest number in 18 months to have done that. The cost of staple rice has exploded more than 90%, and it is causing terrific concern. Inflation has risen 3.2% year on year. In the last month, it's risen 3%. And food prices are up 7.4%. And like I said, rice at 92% from this time last year. This is the largest price increase since 1971. So it is causing some concern here. Japan is to join joint drills that are going to happen in the Philippines starting in April, in just 2 weeks' time. It's the first time for the self-defense forces to actually join. They have been in an observer status. They're sending a destroyer, a frigate, along with about a contingent of 150 self-defense forces soldiers. It doesn't sound like very much. There are going to be 9,000 other soldiers there. The largest contingent is from the United States, of Philippines, the United States, Australia, and Japan will be joining in this exercise. It's a pretty big deal. It's going to be a full kind of amphibious, all parties involved, Air Force, Navy, Marine forces as well. This is called the Balikatan project for 2025. It's been going on for a couple of years. Other countries join as observer status, but this is the first time for the SDF to join as a participant. Not a huge contingent, but still it is meaningful. In the diet, there is a proposal now, Maya, to take the consumption tax for food. You might remember a couple of years ago, it was at 8% and then it rose to 10%, except for food products. Food products remained at 8%. And now the proposal being considered in the diet is to take that 8% and just eliminate it completely, bring it down to zero. There were other concerns we mentioned last week about a cash handout to people who are earning below a certain amount of money, or something to kind of cushion the blow of what is anticipated to be the impact to the economy of the Trump tariff taxes, or the Trump tariffs. And I think the parties are kind of coalescing now. We've got an election for the upper house coming in less than 9 weeks. We need to do something so that the population is a little bit appreciative of what we're doing on the political scale. Let's give them some money, or let's cut the gas tax, or let's do something. And I think the consensus being reached right now is to reduce the consumption tax, which is at 8% on all foodstuffs, to zero. Get into that a little bit more. But let's get into the better details after a word from our sponsor, Maya.
Thank you for that, Timothy. And yes, a word for our sponsors. The first one of them is Kanchu, or they are known online, Kanchu.com. We are honored to be able to represent them here because we have worked with James Howell. If you haven't connected with him, please reach out. He's on LinkedIn, or you can also send him an email at james@kanacho.com. You can talk with James in English, you can talk with his colleagues in Japanese, so please do not worry about language barriers. And also, you can talk with him about projects in the following areas: buying and selling real estate in Yokohama, real estate investment, and property management. They have been around for over 40 years. The company has been here for over 40 years, so they are solid, and we're sure that if you talk with them about the projects you have in mind, they will go out of their way to meet your needs. So, Timothy, now back to the podcast and back to the details of what happened during the past week.
Great. Thank you very much. Before I get into the details of the yen dollar exchange rate, I want to conclude by talking about the consumption tax going from 8% to 0. This is a huge deal, and not everybody is really in favor of it. It takes years and years to build that consumption tax consensus. The finance ministry is dependent on receiving these funds, and the budget is formed as a consequence of the knowledge that these funds are going to be coming in. President Trump has outlined these the consumption tax and the VAT taxes as a non-tariff trade barrier. So that might be one of the impetuses of this kind of shift in thinking. It is somewhat of a new, it's somewhat shocking, in fact, that the Japanese government would consider giving up the 8% on foodstuffs because they have. It's just such a hard thing to do. I mean, even when the consumption tax went from 8 to 10%, there was a huge outcry, and they kept the foodstuffs at 8% as kind of a defeat in achieving even 10%. Actually they want to go to as high as 20%. That was the thinking way back then. So to concede that the economy is suffering enough and that the people in the lower income brackets are really having a hard time with the rise in prices of consumer goods and rice, it is an acknowledgement by the Japanese government that they really need to do something on something of an emergency basis. And you can see that in other areas as well. But with regard to the various political parties, the Constitutional Democratic Party is split on offering the consumption tax or bringing it down to 0, or to just being socially, fiscally responsible and keeping it 8%. So there are two factions there. One is led by the leader, Mr. Noda, and the other one is led by the previous leader, Mr. Edano. So there are two factions within the Constitutional Democratic Party. There's a potential, I don't think it's very high, but there's a potential for a split within that party. So Mr. Noda is working very hard on that. But this is a huge deal. For the LDP, it is likewise split. The LDP, of course, is controlling the government, has appointed the finance ministry, and appointed the Bank of Japan governor. So it is very concerned with keeping the finances coming into the government coffers so that it can spend that money and keep the Japanese economy going. In the LDP, there are likewise two factions. One saying, let's give the relief to the people and let's prepare for the election. Let's make them love us once again. And then there's another faction, the conservative faction, as you would expect, that says we need to go, instead of from 8%, we need to take it to 10%, but let's just cool it right now. Let's keep it. Don't give up the ground that you've fought so hard to get by taxing the people of Japan 8% for all the food that they're consuming. Komeito is the party of the people. It's the Clean Government Party. It is in coalition with the LDP. As you might expect, it wants the consumption tax for foodstuffs brought to 0 as quickly as possible. And in fact, because of Komeito, the foodstuffs never went up from 8% to 10% when everything else did. So you can kind of predict what their stance is going to be. And it's not just in this issue. There are other issues too. There are some election districts where they had previously promised not to run a candidate because the LDP is stronger there and they don't want to diminish that and split the vote. And then therefore maybe Komeito doesn't win and the LDP doesn't win, but the opposition party wins. There's a couple of election districts like that. And similarly, where the LDP has acquiesced to Komeito, they're not going to run a candidate in a district so that the chances of Komeito winning are enhanced. And that kind of promise that's been in existence for dozens of years is now being challenged as well. So there are some rifts that are occurring there. So it's something really to watch carefully. Ishin has come up with, they want to eliminate the consumption tax for food. They want to eliminate the gas tax, and they want to lower social insurance premiums for small businesses. So Komeito, Ishin is, as we know, it's focused in Kansai in Osaka. The expo is just started this time last week, so it's a big deal for them, and they want to really increase their holdings in the upper house election as well. So they're trying to push even harder. It's not just the consumption tax for foodstuffs, but the gasoline tax, and lower the insurance premiums for companies, small and medium-sized companies that have to copy the amount of premiums that are paid by individuals into the social insurance scheme. And the Democratic Party for the People is, their position is, this is Mr. Tamaki's party. This is the party that in October increased from 8 members of the lower house to 28. And so they're on a roll. They are the party to watch. Their proposition for the diet consideration is to take from 8% to 5% across the board. So the 10% on other consumables, other products that are being purchased by people in the economy here, take that down to 5%, take food down to 5%, not down to 0%, but they're pushing a little bit more aggressively and probably will make a lot of headway as a consequence of that. Let me get back to the yen. So the yen is further strengthening. It is causing a little bit of concern, not just in the United States, but also here. As you know, when the yen becomes stronger, exports become more expensive. And at the state it is right now, foreigners see Japan as a tourist destination. So there's a huge number of tourists that are coming to Japan. March was the month of the flower blossoms, or the cherry blossoms, exploding throughout Tokyo. It actually continues to follow up the archipelago as the temperature changes, as the temperature gets warmer, creeping up north. So the flower blossom season is increasing in other areas. It's not finished yet. It's just finished for Tokyo. But it attracts a lot of foreign visitors. And this last month was one of the largest numbers of foreign visitors in Japan so far. As a consequence of this, the US dollar seems to be suffering a little bit with regard to confidence in its strength and the prognosis for what's going to happen with Trump taxes, or I'm sorry, the Trump tariffs. So money needs to find a safe haven, and Japan seems to be a little bit safer, a little bit more consistent than the United States currently. So the prognosis for the Japanese yen is that it's going to further strengthen. The Bank of Japan is likely to step in. They're not going to have their monthly meeting until the last day of this month and the first day of May. And so that's coming up in, 2 weeks or so? Today's the 20th, so in about 10 days. Actually, the investor confidence has significantly waned, and it hasn't been this bad with regard to the yen dollar since 2022. The Bank of Japan raised the short-term policy rate from 0.25%, so it's a very tiny amount, but they raised it almost 50% to 3.5% in January. And that was to pursue this 2% inflation target that they haven't quite met. It's right now at 3.2%. I think actually it's a little bit higher than that. But as a consequence of that, speculation is growing on the Fed, not the Fed, but the Japanese Bank of Japan increasing rates yet again. And it's that speculation that really peeves the Bank of Japan Governor Ueda, and he doesn't like the speculation. He's trying to tap that down. But I think people see that in order to address the inflation, and it is running rampant, ladies and gentlemen, that they need to do something to increase that. And so the speculators and the hedge funds are noticing that too, purchasing yen so that they can make a little bit better return on their money. So we anticipate further rate hikes. We'll be watching that Bank of Japan meeting in about 10 days and reporting on that. As we mentioned earlier, Houze Akizawa went to Washington, D.C. on Wednesday and Thursday, returned on Friday. What a trip. What a whirlwind. Let me see. There was an opposition party member in a committee meeting in the Diet just on Friday. You might have heard of that, Mr. Oguma, Shinji Oguma from the lower house, Constitutional Democratic Party, who lambasted the Trump tariffs and was wagging his finger he had an opportunity to quiz the foreign minister, Mr. Iwaya, on Friday. And this caused a real storm for those people who hate Donald Trump and hate the MAGA movement. This was a fire rod. This politician said all of the things that people detest about Trump, about the tariffs, about the elections, about that sort of thing. And he said that essentially the Trump tactics are extortion to Japan for paying these tariffs, and they're unreasonable and they're difficult to fathom, and the mathematics don't work. So that's something you're probably going to hear something about. It was only on Friday, so it hasn't hit the waves too much. I don't know how impactful that's going to be, but for people who don't like Donald Trump, I think it's music to their ears, and it's so fractious that people that don't like Donald Trump, typically, no matter what happens, the president himself has said that, they're just never going to like him. But it is a tough period now for the discussion of tariffs. Mr. Akazawa going to Washington, D.C. is just the first step, just setting the tone. No deals have been made. But I think with regard to the rest of the world and how Japan and the United States deal with it, I mean, Japan is the United States' largest investor. It invests a lot in the United States, manufacturing and automobiles, semiconductors, and lots of services. For the United States to treat their trade partner, Japan, a little bit brusquely is going to be a signal to the rest of the world on what their trade negotiations are going to be. And so I think that the negotiations will end fairly quickly, fairly positively. And I think it's a signal to the rest of the world that the Trump tariffs are meant to level the playing field and to make things a little bit more equal. There was a meeting with the president of Italy just this last week, and there's wider agreement that just internationally that a reset needs to happen, and the activant of doing that is the Trump presidency. So there's a lot of anticipation there. There is some speculation of the economy beginning to take a hit as a consequence of that. There's a lot of discussion on that, but it is an antidote to curing things and to making things better. But the economy in Japan is not reacting very favorably for that. But I think it's probably a phase that needs to happen before the trade system and the way things had been done previously needs to be rectified. And I think that's the whole objective here. Let me see. The LDP is a complicated machine. It's been running the government ever since the end of World War II. For except for very brief periods, it didn't hold complete sway. And the LDP right now has their LDP headquarters in Tokyo, Nagata-cho. I think you've seen it on TV. Most people know where it is. It's very close to the Diet buildings. But it also has the Tokyo chapter. It has the regional chapters of various groups, and it has the Association of Regional Chapters as well. They don't all see eye to eye on all the issues, and there is a bit of a controversy that's going on there. There is an upper house election going on, as we all know and are aware of. There are two seats in the Tokyo district. Mr. Takemi, who is a very popular 5-term upper house member, minister of state, is going up for re-election. Undoubtedly, he will win. But there's another seat there, and the LDP was trying to decide on a candidate to run. They selected an individual after a long process and began prepping her for the election. And then it came out that she has actually criticized very roundly the LDP in the last election before the October 20th surprise, where the LDP lost its power. And now she doesn't seem to be a favorite of the LDP anymore. This is pretty hard to fathom, that they could make a mistake like that. And also, you might remember Ishihara Nobuteru is the son of the previous governor of Tokyo, Mr. Ishihara Shintaro. He's an author. He's very famous. He was a governor. He was, I think, maybe even the longest serving Tokyo governor. His brother, Yujiro, is like the Elvis Presley of Japan cinema. Everybody knows who Yujiro is. And Shintaro, his brother, great sailing aficionados. And Nobuteru is the son of the former governor of Tokyo. In any event, he lost his election and wants to come back, and there's an opening for him to run in the upper house, but he was passed over by this person that it was found out was critical of the LDP just recently, and now she's out, but he's not necessarily picked, even though he comes from a huge pedigree, and he was the Secretary General of the LDP briefly. So he has some chops, but the LDP is not really looking like they want to ride with him for whatever reason. But he wants to run. And so as a consequence of that, it is possible that there are discussions being held. I think there are discussions being held for him to run under another banner so that he can continue being a politician, this time as an upper house member. So there is a lot of excitement and intrigue that's going on there. With the LDP, it's not a tight ship. It used to be fairly well controlled, but there are some strains that are being shown throughout Japanese politics, as we're all very much aware of, and as we discussed, roundly on this program. So it's something to watch what's going to happen with Nobuteru Ishihara, and also how the LDP is going to figure out who's going to run in the Tokyo elections that are available for LDP seats, and also how they're going to challenge and deal with Kometo's position on running their candidate. Coming up this next week, there's expected to be some fireworks where every once in a while the leaders have an opportunity to question the prime minister one-on-one. That opportunity happens this Wednesday. There will be a 45-minute parlay where, depending on what their power base is, how many members of parliament they have, dictates how many minutes they get to quiz the prime minister. So on Wednesday, Mr. Noda has 30 minutes to quiz the prime minister and for him to respond to those answers. or to those questions. Mr. Maehara with the Constitutional Democratic Party has, I'm sorry, that's Mr. Noda. Maehara with Ishin has an opportunity to quiz him for 9 minutes, and Mr. Tamaki for 6 minutes. So depending on what their power base is, so you can tell that Mr. Noda 30 minutes, Mr. Maehara with Ishin 9 minutes, and Mr. Tamaki with the Democratic Party for the People 6 minutes. This is going to be an opportunity for these individuals to showcase their political party's prowess on policy issues, on tax, on consumption, on the tariffs, on similarly with the earlier outburst on to the foreign minister, what the Trump tariffs mean and how the Japanese government should respond to those. It should be strong. It should everybody has an opinion on that. So it's something to look forward to, and we will be reporting it roundly when we get together next Sunday. There's a lot of talk about Japan being such a favorite ally to the United States. The United States receives more than $783 billion from Japan in investments, and it provides about 800,000 jobs in the United States. It is probably the number one investor of foreign direct investment in the United States from Japan. Let me see. Japan globally invests 2.1 trillion US dollars. They're denominated in other currencies, but as a unified currency, about $2 trillion Japan invests globally. About, not quite, but 783 billion of that goes to the United States. China gets 135, so that's a significant decrease. The United States gets 783, China gets 135, the UK gets 51 billion, the Netherlands gets 49 billion, and Singapore gets 47 billion. So in that kind of staircase fashion, but by and far, the United States is the largest recipient of Japan foreign direct investment. That's not from the government, that's just overall. From the United States side, the United States invests similarly globally, while Japan invests about $2 trillion annually. The United States invests about 6.5 trillion globally. Their largest target is the UK, which receives 1 trillion in foreign direct investment. The Netherlands with about $1 trillion. Luxembourg 532 billion. Ireland gets 491 billion, and Canada gets 451 billion foreign direct investment. So the calculation of how Japan and the United States will deal with the tariffs, in particular the non-tariff trade barriers, the consumption tax, dealing with autos. One of the things that the president kept talking about was not seeing American automobiles on the roads in Japan. And that's a complicated and difficult issue. I think there are a lot of people who can say a lot about that. I used to work and advise General Motors on their policy in Japan. And it is an extremely difficult issue. But a lot of companies have difficulty dealing with Japan similarly, and they're actually selling their cars. They just pay the price for it. But I think the United States wants to see more U.S. cars on Japanese roads because Japanese cars are dominating American roads. There's a lot of reasons for that, but maybe we can get into that a little bit deeper. Maya, your favorite topic, one that you are especially seeped in, is tourism. Japan eclipsed, and I think people who live here, you can't escape it because it's so obvious, but Japan eclipsed 10 million visitors in the first quarter. And last year, it wasn't until May that they eclipsed 10 million. So the pace of eclipsing 10 million for the quarter is a significant thing, and you just can't miss it, particularly in March when the cherry blossoms are blooming in Osaka, Kyoto, Tokyo, hotspots for foreign tourists. There was a lot, but 3.5 in just March, 3.5 million people. In the first quarter, it's 10.54. So we are absolutely going to eclipse what we achieved last year. I think in 2024 there was 37 million people who visited Japan, and the breakdown for this last month was the largest number of people coming to visit Japan was from the United States, and the second number was Canada. So frequently it's China, it's South Korea, but this last month it was the United States and Canada, which is kind of interesting. With that, I'd like to turn it back over to you, Maya. Let's get back into the Q&A and generate some heat and light for the audience here and figure out what are the hot buttons that people are considering now.
Okay, thank you for that. And yes, before we move to the Q&A session, of course, I would like to say thank you to our other sponsor, which is Houze. And you know Houze already, we have talked about them. Houze, or as they are known, Houze Inc., are available also online, or you can connect with them via their webmaster email. If you are worried about language barriers, once again, there is nothing to be concerned about because they can talk with you both in English and in Japanese, and Houze works in the areas of custom home design and construction, and also commercial building construction. Hana Howell is there. You can connect with her on LinkedIn as well, or you can find her contact details in the description of the video on YouTube. So thank you very much to Houze. Thank you very much to Kanchu. We're moving back to the Q&A session, this briefing. And we've got, yes, Patricia, thank you very much for joining, and good luck with your student starting at 9 o'clock. And thank you to everybody who has joined us so far. If you're watching us on YouTube or LinkedIn or Facebook, let us know that there. Like or subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet, because when you subscribe and hit also the bell icon, you can receive notifications about this briefing. On LinkedIn, when you see the notification or the post, please hit the attend button, and you'll receive notification maybe 10 or 15 minutes before the start of the briefing. Yes?
Maya, before you move on to the Q&A, don't forget about the synopsis. So we're moving the synopsis from publishing it on LinkedIn, which is not such a great platform to do that. We're moving it up to Substack, and that will go cold turkey in May, right?
Yes, it will. So from May, we will be posting the synopsis only on Substack, not LinkedIn. So, of course, if you haven't subscribed to Substack, Langley Esquire, there, please do so. We have we publish the link for subscription every week when we post the synopsis.
Exorbitantly expensive.
Yes, so it's 0 yen actually. Yes, but you do need to subscribe if you want to read them. Of course, the people who receive our newsletter via email, they will continue to receive it without the need to do anything. So please do not worry about that. Okay, thank you very much indeed. And now we're moving to the questions. We actually have a long comment, which was posted, I think, yes, very early this morning, probably soon after midnight, by Byron Johnston again.
Okay, because Byron is in Washington, D.C.
Yes, he is there. So for him, it was the day before. Well, I'm going to read it out to you. Please listen carefully.
Okay.
It appears that the statements emanating from Japan on the tariff negotiations are prepared with one eye on the upcoming upper house elections. In the event that no agreement is reached in 90 days, what level of tariffs will kick in, and might those steep tariffs will sorry, just a moment, it's moving. And might those steep tariffs lead to a fall in Japanese government? Might that in fact be the actual trigger for a lower house election rather than the often predicted double election, since Japan's legendary indecisiveness would not favor such a drastic scenario? Of course, a poor performance in the upper house election will itself trigger a lower house election too. What are your thoughts on this, Timothy?
As usual, a very insightful, incisive my analysis or question from Byron. Thank you very much for joining us. Yes, I think with the Trump strategy, the Trump tariffs, it is he's imposed 25% overall for cars, 24% for other products. He's given a 90-day reprieve, so we're going to think about that for 90 days. And I think the strategy is, if you have you don't want those tariffs imposed on you, come to the White House, come talk with us, come talk with the Commerce Secretary and the Secretary of the Treasury and USTR, and let's see what we can do to make things a little bit more equal, a little bit more reciprocal. So come with your ideas. It's not quite like a gun to the head. It does suggest that, but I think it's just, let's examine the relationship and let's move forward based on that. I don't think that it is likely that in the passage of 90 days, there's not an agreement done. And in fact, I think there will be lots of fanfare that a deal has been done. It's beneficial to Japan. It's beneficial to the United States. And we can move forward. And other countries are going to be looking at that and saying, well, it's not as scary as I thought. I mean, if the United States treats Japan shabbily, the message there is, my God, look how they treated somebody that's so close to them. We're in a worse situation. So we should actually, let's retaliate. Let's come back with a little bit of something harsh. So I don't think that that's the strategy. I think this has to win. It has to win for the United States. It has to win for this president. And I think it's just a realignment of a global trade scenario that's just out of whack, and it needs to be recalibrated. And I think that's the vision and the goal of the Trump administration. So I don't think that it's going to be a failure. I don't think it's going to eclipse 90 days. Yes, I think if there was a failure, it would look really bad for the LDP. I don't think the LDP is going to allow that to happen. And as far as, well, I don't even want to consider a failure there, because yes, it would trigger a further erosion of the LDP, potentially encouraging a snap election for the lower house as well. Those prospects seem rather mild at this point in time, but it's Japanese politics, so anything can happen very quickly, as we've experienced over the last 2 or 3 months. Yeah, let's see how that rolls out. But I'm looking forward to a very swift negotiation. It's going to take time for us to put the pieces together, because it's not just Mr. Akazawa negotiating with the President of the United States. He has to negotiate with the LDP, and the LDP has to negotiate with all of the opposition parties too, because it doesn't wield the power of a majority vote. So it's a very delicate position for the Prime Minister to be in. But I think I'm rather hopeful that it will conclude successfully.
Yeah, I am actually very much so too, because while probably most of the other countries are thinking about retaliatory tariffs, Japan is going in the opposite direction. And I believe that this is a very smart way to move on and actually negotiate with somebody as bullish as the administration of Mr. Trump. So we'll see what happens indeed, but I'm very hopeful about this as well. And yeah, let's watch and see. And there are a lot of counterintuitive things in the Japanese way of negotiating. But I think that they're really masters in negotiations as well. Great. And we have also a comment from Manabe-san. He says, I'm paying close attention to the statements of the central banks of both Japan and the United States and the administration's response to them. Interest rates and government bonds are what I follow too. So, Timothy, I don't know whether you have comments on this comment, what your thoughts are, and if you have, please do share them with us.
So thank you, Manabe-san. I follow what you post, and you're a very prolific writer, a great thinker of U.S.-Japan relations. And yes, it is true. The currency, the value of the yen and the dollar, the Japanese don't call it currency manipulation. The United States says what the Japanese are doing is currency manipulation, but all countries do that to kind of balance the economies. But yes, the Japanese have come in very strong from time to time, and there's a lot of concern and a lot of discussion about the Japanese going in yet again, and they use their foreign currency reserves to do that. So it's not a budget issue, but it is a tactical issue that's exercised by the Bank of Japan from time to time. But it hasn't been an issue when Mr. Akazawa went to Washington, D.C. We thought it might be because it is a top issue, but other issues took some precedence, particularly defense spending, the support of troops in Okinawa and elsewhere, and also the automobile issue took prominence, and also the non-tariff trade barriers. But those issues will be resolved in due course. But yes, it is currency, the price of the currency, and the ability of countries to manage and yes, manipulate is one of the words that comes out, but it's not pure market forces that deals with that. It's the hand of government that also dictates that, and that, yes, it does infect trade flows and the attractiveness for tourists to come in or not to come in, that sort of thing. So it's for Japan, it's a very important but complicated matter. But thanks for following it. And thanks for participating, Maya.
Yes, indeed. I also think that we don't talk about services, right? Because
trade and services, right?
Yes, because the current administration, American administration, focused on physical goods, and probably they're the biggest areas, of the trade between Japan and the United States. But there is also another areas, and that is internet, and that is also online services, which are huge here in Japan. American companies are huge here in Japan. Right?
Yes.
We've got Google, imagine that. We've got Amazon, imagine that, right? And there is almost no talk about services, and they're not going to be subject to tariffs, I guess, or maybe they will be. But at the same time, I wonder, how much, and probably we can look at that deeper down the road. But what the proportion of services, American services sold in Japan, is, to the physical goods.
Sure. It's a huge trade imbalance. I mean, the United States dominates that.
Indeed. And there are things, I think that there are also levers which Japan can use there as well. But of course, we're going to continue following this and, inform you about the negotiations and everything else.
Thanks,
thank you, Manabe-san. Yes, and thank you, Ricky. Thank you for watching. It's a pleasure to have you with us always. Okay, and from Kai Lip Ang, good morning. Does a good deal for Japan equal losing from Trump? This is the question from Kai. Yes.
Yeah, so that's a great question. I think that question is more aptly applied to China. So China and the United States are in this trade war. They're really bad out hard. And for us to get a solution there, President Xi has to be able to tell his people, I came away, I didn't get a black eye, I kicked his ass. China we're now on a different trade footing, and we're going to move forward. I think that's a harder sell, but similarly, Donald Trump has to say the same thing. We had a very prominent debate with China, and now we've settled that. It needs to be settled, and both parties need to say they came out victorious. Similarly with Japan needs to be able to say, we didn't blink, we got a good deal, things are moving forward, and then President Trump needs to be able to say the same thing. The issues with Japan are rather clear-cut. It's defense spending, it's what's going on with the soldiers and their support. It's automobiles largely. I don't know how they're going to resolve that one. I think if Japanese people want to buy a U.S. car compared to a Japanese car because of the price differential, yes, that could happen. But it's very complicated, and it's unlikely that the Americans are going to come and produce cars in Japan. They did that for a very, very brief period under an arrangement with one of their alliance partners, I believe it was Suzuki, to build a GM branded car, thereby allowing GM to join the Japan Automobile Manufacturers Association, because then they were a Japanese automobile manufacturer, if you follow that logic. So yes, it's a very, very tough issue. And then the non-tariff trade barriers, as we all know, those are the ones that are just the most intractable. They are deeply entrenched. It's hard as hell to kind of resolve them because so many people have been aligned and they've got their income based on some of these regulations and rules and the traditions that go with them. So it's very difficult. So 90 days, it doesn't seem like a very long time, but I'm pretty hopeful that I am hopeful that a resolution will be reached rather quickly. And we've got the U.S. ambassador now in Japan. He will present his. We didn't talk about this, but he will present his credentials to the emperor. He made the application for presenting to the emperor when he arrived. That goes through a special process, and then he needs to personally present himself. This is a constitutional duty of the emperor, in fact, to receive foreign emissaries. So the ambassador, His Excellency George Glass, will present himself, probably with his wife and a small entourage, to the imperial palace to present himself, and then officially become ambassador. Although he's acting as U.S. ambassador already, but maybe that's a diversion we could talk about under a different topic, Maya.
Yeah, and I also wanted to say just a thought along the question of Kai, that a good deal in Japan, a good deal is not in absolute term. Okay, it is seen as a good deal under the current circumstances. And I believe that this is also another difference, we can call it a cultural difference, between how Japan sees negotiations and the current situation, and also how other countries see the situation that has been created by the Trump administration. So I believe that instead of going for absolute good or absolute win, they will try to just do the best possible under the current circumstances. Okay, so thank you very much for this. And yes, also there is a question from Hiroaki, and he says, okay, I will just, read it almost in the way it was written there. So probably, the United States and Japan can invest in, technical development in Ukraine or technological developments in Ukraine. So I don't know what your thoughts are on this, Timothy, because Japan, I believe that if there are opportunities there, Japan will definitely join them and utilize the opportunities. But the question is whether there are any thoughts about this or not as of this point in time.
So this area is in a bit of flux. Last week, we reported that Japan is joining NATO in supporting Ukraine and Ukraine redevelopment when the war finally ends, and being capable of participating in NATO activities. It's because of the pacifist constitution, there's only so much that the Japanese can do, usually in forms of money, or in forms of non-combatant kind of material and like hospitals and they participate pretty heavily, but not in a combative role and not in a kind of offensive role. And the movement of Japan towards NATO has increased over the last couple of years. But once again, under the new administration of Donald Trump, things are different, far different than they were under Obama or under Mr. Biden. So it is in a bit of flux there. The United States said that they want to have more of a command and control participation with Japan, and then they backed off just a tiny bit there. That doesn't really implicate what's going on with Ukraine, but I think anything that Japan does with Ukraine is going to be similar to what the United States decides to do as well. It sounds like it's being participated with what's going on in Brussels and in NATO, but I think at the end of the day, it's probably the United States and Japan. They're just so tightly intertwined that I think the Japanese government is more. I mean, everybody wants the war to finish, and everybody wants to participate in the rebuilding of that country and that economy. So I think that's where the question is going to. But first we have to end the hostilities before that moves forward.
Indeed. Okay, so thank you very much, Timothy. It looks like we have gone through the questions and the comments here. And yes, you can go. I don't know, maybe the wind is too strong. It looks like it's not a good way for sailing. Coming off my limited knowledge about sailing, but
no, it's not. The wind is too hard. There's a little bit of white caps appearing, but next week I will depart from the harbor here in Katsuyama for maybe 5 or 6 days, a sail for as long and as far as we can go over Golden Week. So I'll depart this harbor on Saturday. I don't know where I'll be because we have to read the wind and then figure out what our destination will be. I don't know where I will be reporting on Sunday, but maybe I won't even look like this. But I will be on the water.
As long as you don't report from underwater, once again, everything should be okay. And just one last thing. So there is a lag between LinkedIn and also this platform which I'm using, the software I'm using to live stream. So we received a good comment from Mr. Akira Takuhiro. And his opinion actually is that Japan's advantage is due diligence, while frustration can be expressed domestically, unless there are consequences, the divide and conquer approach will continue within the minority, and not so much here. Yes, okay, thank you. Thank you very much for this, and I cannot add anything to that from somebody who is very much into this field and well-versed in it, knowledgeable and experienced. So thank you very much for sharing your thoughts. And to everybody who stayed with us, it was a pleasure having you with us. And Timothy, once again, please stay on board next week and the week after. And let's continue. So
thank you very much. Thank you, Maya. Thanks, everybody.
Well, thank you. And with this, one more shout out to our sponsors.
Here we go.
Yes, here we go.